This RC Beginner Series is brought to you by Horizon Hobby. Hey, welcome to Flite Test. I'm Josh, and this is Josh.
Hi.
And this is episode 2 of our beginner series. Today we're going to talk about basic aerodynamics.
Exactly. The first episode was all about choosing the right airplane. Hopefully after watching that, you got through and you're able to choose the perfect plane for you. Yes.
And now we're going to tell you how it works.
Yeah, we want to give you a brief description. And when I say brief, basic, simple, because you can go all the way to college stuff with this. We just want to let you know.
Did you go to college?
No, I did not.
I kind of knew that.
We want to give you a basic understanding of the simple parts of an airplane, what they do, so when you do get in the air, you understand how everything works together. First,
let's talk about the plane's body parts. First, you have your fuselage. That's like your plane's torso. That's where all the limbs connect.
All the limbs connect. Something has to hold your tail, your motor, and your wings.
That's right.
And speaking of tail, that's back here.
That's this guy right here.
That's a whole section actually, but it's made up of different parts.
So back here on the tail, you have your 2 different stabilizers, your horizontal
and your vertical.
And
that's pertaining to the orientation. This sits horizontally, this sits vertically.
Right.
But this actually gives you elevation stabilization, I guess you can call it. It keeps your plane from pitching up and down, but you do need something to give you the control for that.
Yeah, so on the horizontal stabilizer, you have the elevator.
The elevator does just what it says. It changes your elevation.
Up and down.
Up and down.
Just like a real elevator.
Yep. Now, even though it's called the vertical stabilizer.
That's just because it sticks up vertically.
It's also called the fin. It gives you tracking stability. It keeps the plane tracking like a keel on a boat.
Oh, wow.
But we need something to give us yaw control, and that is where the rudder comes in.
That's the rudder back here.
Yep. And that changes your yaw angle.
Right.
So it actually helps you steer through the air as a yaw.
The next body part is the arms.
Arms.
As we like to call them, the wings.
Without the wings, nothing good would happen. You'd have an RC car.
A really skinny one.
Awkward looking RC car.
Yeah, but the wings actually give you lift.
And speaking of lift, you know what? The jury's still out on what actually creates lift, but there's 2 main theories and 2 main principles, especially in RC, that we use. One is Bernoulli's principle. Do you know what that is?
Bernie's principle?
Bernie, yeah. I probably sound Bernoulli's wrong. Bernoulli's principle is simply where the airflow out on the top of the surface has to travel faster because there's more distance to cover than the bottom. This creates a low pressure area and actually effectively sucks the plane into the air.
So the air has to travel over top of the wing.
Exactly. And there's a farther distance for it to travel, so it has to speed up.
Right.
That increased speed of air actually creates a low pressure area above the wing.
So it pulls it up.
So it actually pulls
it lifts it up.
It lifts up. So airfoils are good. You know, Bernoulli's principle, good. But we have an awesome little...
Good job, Bernie.
Yeah, good job, Bernie. We have an awesome little trainer here that we talked about with scratch building. And there's no airfoil on it. It's just flat.
It's
flat as a pancake. This one doesn't work on Bernoulli's principle. It actually works on Newton's law of motion.
Emotion?
No, not emotion. Motion. That's in whenever an object reacts on something, so air being the object, it actually pushes against it and has to react with an opposite action.
Now that actually still creates 2 different air pressures.
Theoretically, you're right. Yeah, as the air pushes against here, here's your high pressure zone. Not much airflow over here, not much pressure here. Here's your low pressure zone.
Okay.
Absolutely right. And the jury's probably still going to be out till 100 years from now what actually creates lift and how it works. There's 2 different camps. You know what? The plane flies. Have fun with it. We talked about wings. We talked about that. Let's talk about airfoils.
Airfoils?
Yes.
That's the different shapes and configurations that create your lift.
Exactly. If you cut this wing in half or right down and showed the cross section of it, it's the shape of that area.
Okay.
All right. And so different shapes will give you different performances and different characteristics. As we said before, you want to go with something slow and stable. But let's go ahead and go to the farthest section away from where you want to start, which is
symmetrical.
Symmetrical.
That's when it looks the same on both sides.
Exactly. And you know what? If it's the same on both sides, that means theoretically the characteristics are going to be the same no matter which orientation you bring the plane. Now that will result in a plane that is just as happy flying upside down as it is right side up.
Like a 3D plane?
Like a 3D aerobatic airplane. And you know what? Do we want to get into 3D aerobatic airplanes from the beginning?
Not right now.
Not right now, but someday you will be. So don't worry about that. Put that aside. Generally, they're on faster airplanes that are more aerodynamic, more agile in the air.
So what about a semi-symmetrical?
Semi-symmetrical. You'll find semi-symmetrical on most scale airplanes. Warbirds, even in this great tailorcraft right here, you have a semi-symmetrical airfoil.
How is it semi-symmetrical?
Well, what you have here is the very top of the wing has much more curve. The bottom of the wing has less curve, but it gives you a little bit more speed, but it also gives you, if you do decide to roll it inverted and everything, you don't have to do as much pitch authority to combat this. If you take this little Piper Cub here and roll it upside down, if you can get it upside down, you're gonna have a lot of forward input trying to override the lift that this wing wants to generate. It's gonna want to generate and pull you to the ground. So you're gonna have to give a lot more forward input. Where these planes are much happier, you just have to put a little bit less. Now, fully symmetrical airfoils, sometimes you have to put none at all.
Okay.
All right?
Flat bottom.
And that's this
flat bottom airfoils, you make the rockin' world go round.
This Cub here has a flat bottom airfoil. That means the plane is happiest when it's in the proper orientation, which is right side up, flying properly to the ground.
So what we're talking about is it's flat on the bottom.
On the very bottom.
Hence flat bottom.
Yes. Your truest form of lift is going to be when you're flying right side up. So if you can get this upside down, you're going to have a lot of issues keeping it upside down. The plane's going to want to roll around the right direction and fly properly for you.
So keep it happy.
So keep it happy. Also, your lift is strongly generated on the top. So if you do get in trouble, the plane will want to recover much quicker. And the final airfoil, under camber, and you're going to fly, and the smaller the airplanes get, the more stable they're made to be, the more under camber. It's going to actually recess up towards the top.
It does a little arc there.
This plane by far gives you the most lift for the least amount of speed required. And remember how we were talking about Newton's laws?
Yeah, 5 minutes ago.
This is getting a lot closer to a flying kite.
Okay.
You're going to have a lot less speed, but a lot more stability and a lot better handling at lower speeds.
What do they want to go with as a beginner?
Under camber or flat bottom?
Under camber is the best. Okay.
Yep. As you get to bigger airplanes, generally they'll go from under camber to flat bottom.
Okay.
So either under camber or flat bottom, good to go.
Now the common denominator between these two theories, no matter which lift religion, if you will, your faith lies in, the common denominator is airflow.
Without airflow, it won't go.
That's great.
You like that? I made that up. Forward momentum brings airflow, and that's actually generated through your propeller.
Now, one thing you want to be careful of is stalling.
Stalling is bad. What is stalling?
It's when your engine dies.
When your engine dies?
Yeah.
Well, actually, stalling can come from your engine dying, but it's not like a car. Okay. It's not like when you start it up and the engine goes, puh. Okay?
What does it do?
Puh.
Puh.
That's what my engine does when it stalls.
It's pretty tame.
Yeah. Stalling is when you lose the energy of the airflow on the wings.
Okay.
So as you're flying through the air, everything's working. Whether it's Bernoulli or whether it's Newton, everything is working the way it goes.
Yeah.
Once you lose that energy of the airflow going over the wings, the airplane can't generate
You're toast.
lift. Exactly. Now there's lots of scientific reasons on why stalls happen, having to do with boundary layers and surface layers. It's just a matter of airflow not working properly over the wings the way it should, to keep it simple.
So what happens when you stall?
When you stall, the plane drops.
Uh-oh.
If it can't generate lift, it's going towards the ground because gravity is always in effect.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's bad stuff. But you know what? This is why we talk to you about going with a trainer first. When you have a trainer, when you do end up stalling an airplane, it's going to recover much quicker than, say, a warbird or a jet or any of those other crazy planes that hopefully someday you're going to be enjoying, but not today. That's why we strongly encourage you to go with a trainer, because it'll recover much quicker.
So what are some ways that we can keep from stalling?
Well, one thing is keep your airspeed under control, and that does not mean fly fast. What I'd strongly recommend is once you get in the air, take the plane up as high as you can safely, and then go ahead and throttle back and pull back on that elevator. Eventually what's going to happen is you're going to lose enough energy, the plane's going to drop its nose naturally, because there's a little bit more weight in the nose. It's not going to drop on its tail. Okay, that's all with CG balance. We'll talk about that later. But the plane's going to drop its nose. It's going to regain the speed. The most important thing you can do is relax. Let the plane gain its speed back. Let it get that airflow back over the wing. It'll actually recover very quickly on its own with very little input. The worst thing you can do is try to fight it the whole process through there. Even on full-scale planes, when you stall, the first thing is to neutralize all of your controls.
So when in doubt, level out.
Level out is good. Very good.
Freestyling.
And then we talked about stalls. There's a common denominator with keeping away from stalls. And what do you guess that is?
When in doubt, level out.
Level out. Keep it as close to level as possible. You can accomplish a lot with maneuvering your airplane with very minute control throws. And when you're flying an airplane, you don't want to be yanking and making like this.
Hey, too much.
That's just crazy.
No,
okay?
Stop it.
All bad things happen when you get extreme on the controls. Think of your control inputs as like you're flying on top of a ball. Hey, a ball. If you get too extreme on your throws, you're going to fall off of that ball.
Hey, sliding off. Getting too extreme.
Yeah, exactly. The plane is very stable, but as you get on more one side, you're going to have more adverse effects on the airplane. Right. So always try to keep that plane as centered as possible on the ball.
Very cool.
All right.
So the slower that you fly, probably the more likely that you'll stall.
If you fly too slow, you definitely will stall.
Okay, so speed it up all the way.
Speed is good, but it's not great. If you have too much speed, what else do you have a lot more going over?
Oh, it's really touchy.
It's going to be touchy. And why do you think that is?
Because you're going faster.
You're not only putting airflow over your wings, but you're also putting airflow over your control surfaces too.
Yeah.
So the control surfaces are going to be more touchy as well.
I do this and you do this.
Yeah, a good rule of thumb on most trainer planes is half throttle is generally a good cruising speed. Full throttle is generally meant for aggressive climbing. Chop the throttle, you're going to be gliding in for landing. Half throttle, generally planes are the happiest.
Now you know all the body parts, and you know the dangers of stalling.
You know about lift and airflow.
So now, how do you control this thing? That brings us to control surfaces.
Nice, and we actually talked a little bit about that when we were talking about the different parts of the airplane, but let's talk about what they do scientifically.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Now this plane is lacking something called aileron. So why don't we go ahead and grab the T-Craft really quick so we can go over all the different
Still a
control
great plane.
It's still good, and actually what I strongly recommend is start with a 3-channel airplane.
Here, I'll just do this by myself.
Oh, you're gonna do this? Okay.
Sure.
Well, there you go. Ailerons are great, but they can come later on in the mix. You don't necessarily need them, but for the benefit of talking about different controls, we might as well talk about the 4 major controls.
Okay. The first one we're gonna cover is the up and the downer.
As I said before, gravity is always gonna be present, so you don't wanna be hitting the ground.
No.
So we need to go up and down.
Right.
That was a rhyme.
There's a, yeah.
You like that?
That's good.
The elevator takes care of that for us. And as we talked about airflow over the wings being crucial, airflow over your control surfaces is also very important.
So how does it work?
Well, airflow is technically a fluid.
Air is a fluid?
Air is a fluid. Just imagine
the battlefield.
Because whenever your airflow is going over, when you feel wind blowing against you,
yes,
you feel the wind pushing against your face, don't you?
Yeah.
Exactly. The control surfaces do the exact same thing. Say you want to go up. As this deflects up, airflow is going to go over, and it's going to push against this elevator right here.
Against here?
Exactly. And that is going to force your elevator down. Now, what's that doing to the nose?
Bringing it up.
Exactly. As your plane's traveling forward, the elevator is pushing down, the airplane is getting guided up. But you want to stop that, so what do? You give a little bit of down elevator. That down elevator is going to take you down because now it's going to be pushing against the elevator on the bottom surface, raising the elevator up.
Okay.
Now there's a lot of different scientific theories, you know, how it's generally becoming an undercambered airfoil with lift changes. Just know that whenever it pushes against the wind, it changes it. You can go to the science stuff later. That's how it works.
Okay. So probably the same thing for the rudder as well.
Exactly. All control surfaces work the exact same way. The rudder is just simply going to move it on its yaw axis. As it moves one direction, the resistance, the push is going to be on this side. Right. Moves the other direction, it's going to be on this side.
Okay.
All right.
And then third, we have the ailerons up here.
Ailerons, exactly. Now, what do you think the ailerons do?
They move up and down.
Exactly, exactly. But which orientation? Do you think they both move down or up at the same time?
They do opposite, don't they?
They do opposite. 99% of the time, the ailerons are going to move in the opposite directions. If it's the 1% of the time, it's for some other feature and a lot more advanced. Don't worry, we're starting off with a beginner airplane. So ailerons actually move in opposite directions. And what do you think?
This goes up and that goes down.
Exactly. The air is
so the air is going to push on this and push this down.
And it's going to push against here and push this up.
Okay.
This is going to give you your roll access.
Okay.
So combined together, we have ailerons controlling roll, we have your elevator controlling pitch or elevation, and we have your rudder controlling yaw.
Now, are the ailerons, they always move together the same? Like if this one goes down this much, this one's going to come up this much?
Exactly. The ailerons are going to move equally on both sides 99% of the time. There is something called differential, but that's further down the line when you get more involved in RC flight. Our whole goal is to get you in the air, get you to fall in love with flight first, and then move into those more advanced things later.
Cool.
Right.
So why is it that the Super Cub can fly without ailerons?
Well, that's a very good question. What did we talk about with looking for a great trainer in the beginning? What was
less is more?
Less is more.
3 channels.
Something called dihedral. The rudder control input that gives you your yaw coupled with dihedral will actually give you a beautiful coordinated turn.
Okay.
All right, what we have here on a 4-channel airplane, you have another input you have to control at all times. When you want to steer the airplane, you have to give your aileron control input a little bit of rudder input because what it does is it gives you your roll and this gives you your yaw.
Okay, so you don't exceed your 20%.
Well, you don't want to exceed your 20%, but what you need to do on a 4-channel airplane somewhat is actually roll the plane and give you rudder input to actually get a coordinated turn.
Okay.
The same with full-scale model airplanes. Every airplane needs a different amount of rudder and aileron, but that's why we say go with a 3-channel first because the dihedral will give you that control and will mix it automatically for you. You only have to worry about one input.
Now, there's another kind of control surfaces.
There's always an exception to the rules, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And this is where you put your ailerons and your elevator together to form ailevators.
Elevators, very close, but wrong. Elevons.
Elevons.
Yep. Elevators
6 of 1, half dozen
and ailerons put together. You know what? It could have become elevators back when they were inventing the words.
I think it sounds cooler.
I think the bigger, tougher dude just said, I want elevons, and that's what it was.
Is that
Can you picture that?
In your head?
Yeah, that's the picture going. Well, why don't we show one of
the striker?
Yeah, the striker's great.
All right, now you can see there's a fewer control surfaces. We still have our rudder.
Yep, we're lacking a distinguished elevator, aren't we?
Yeah.
Exactly.
All we have is these two right here, which they look just like the ailerons.
They do look just like the ailerons. Remember back when I was talking about how the ailerons actually deflect in opposite directions to give you rolls? Much like what you see right here?
Yeah.
Well, for elevator, one just simply moves up at the same time.
Oh, so you're a liar.
No, I'm not a liar. This is the exception to the rule. Remember, the wings are the ones that break the rules. They can go fast, they can go slow. They're
this is a wing?
This is actually technically a flying wing.
Oh.
Yeah. So what you have here is you have one control surface doing the function of two inputs.
Okay.
You have elevator pitch control and you have aileron controls. And this is done through a computer radio. Now, computer radios, most reputable transmitters will actually have a preset mix where you can simply flip it in there, which makes your setup much easier.
So it makes it easier on them.
It makes it much easier on you. Yeah, and make sure when you do pick out a radio, if you're not getting ready to fly, make sure it does have elevon mixing. It may not be something you want to get into right now, but eventually you will definitely want it. And it saves you having to buy a whole nother transmitter.
Cool. Well, speaking of transmitters, let's hook it up to the Taylor Craft so we can see how exactly you control all the different control surfaces. Now, it's very important that you have your transmitter talking to your plane, otherwise you're not going to control
Otherwise, it's a free flight.
That's right.
Exactly. So here's our transmitter, and there's different modes or different ways the controls are set up on transmitters. We fly mode 2, so we're going to talk about mode 2 the most. There's different modes out there. We'll cover that later in the transmitter section, but we're going to go ahead and talk about mode 2. If you're getting into the hobby and you want to follow along with us, go ahead and pick a mode 2 radio out. It's very simple.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about the right stick on a mode 2 transmitter.
Sure.
If you pull back towards your belly button, which way do you think you're going?
Belly button?
Yeah, actually, that's how I was taught.
Really?
Everyone knows where their belly button is. If you pull,
I do.
Yep, exactly. If you pull the stick towards your belly button, maybe it's because I was 7 when I learned to fly. I don't know. The plane's going to go up. Everyone knows where the belly button is. Just pull the stick towards your belly button. You're going up.
It's weird and helpful.
It's very awkward and helpful. But pulling back on the stick takes you up.
Go up.
Pushing forward on the stick takes you down. Now, once again, we're talking about small controls are the key to success. Don't go too excessive on the controls, or bad things are going to
fall
happen.
off that basketball.
Exactly. So coupled on the right stick along with our elevator, going back is up, forward is down, left and right
is left and right. Same stick.
Right. Exactly. The exception to the rule is a 3-channel airplane. A 3-channel airplane does not have ailerons. It has a rudder.
Right.
So that's going to be your steering control.
Okay.
So that's going to be on the right stick, and there's going to be nothing on your left stick where the throttle and the rudder normally.
But with 4-channel,
exactly,
have rudder on this side.
Because your aileron is the predominant control in steering the airplane when you have a 4-channel airplane. So ailerons left and right is simply left and right, and on the left stick, your rudder left and right is simply left and right. Now there's a final function on our left stick that we haven't talked about. What do you think that is?
Throttle.
It's the go. It's the airflow generator. You like that? See, I made that up in my head.
Oh, that's cool.
As you increase your throttle forward, it's going to increase the RPM. So the higher your throttle position, the higher your RPMs.
You go faster.
You go faster. And once again, it's not the rule, but a good suggestion. A good training airplane that's set up will generally cruise in the air at a very happy speed where you can climb, dive, but have a manageable speed around half throttle.
Which is right in the middle.
Which is roughly right in the middle.
We're not going to show you right now.
We're not going to go there.
We'll cut our fingers off.
Yeah, and when in doubt, throttle out.
Oh, changed it up now.
You like that?
Yeah.
When in doubt, level out. But with the throttle, the first thing you want to do if you get in trouble while you're flying is pull that throttle back.
Throttle.
It's going to
reduce your speed.
Exactly, and then level out. So take out your throttle. That's going to reduce the force speed. Then get the plane back to level. That's going to reduce your speed even more.
Nice.
But you're doing no good if you're fighting an airplane going towards the ground and having full throttle as your input.
Now, it's very important that you make sure that you have everything plugged in right so that all your control surfaces are doing what you're telling them to do. And we actually have a video about a method that we call the high five method.
High five.
It's just a cool way to show you to make sure that all your control surfaces are set up right.
And if you watch this video and you understand how your control surfaces work, that's one reason why we're going through basic aerodynamics. You should actually be able to figure this out too, because you're going to know if I give a right input on the aileron, that right aileron needs to be going up because that wing needs to drop.
Right.
So that's the whole purpose of aerodynamics.
Exactly. Now, aerodynamics is a really, really deep subject, and there's a lot of information about it, but we just want to give you guys some basics to get started.
And as you get along and get more involved in this great hobby, you're going to have a thirst for knowledge, and you're going to want to learn more about that. There's tons of information out there.
All right, so let's recap.
Yeah, recaps are good.
We talked about the different parts of the plane. You have your fuselage where everything connects.
You got your tail surfaces, horizontal and vertical tail surfaces.
You got your wings that generate lift.
Lift is important. Lift requires airflow, and different airfoils give you different characteristics.
And we did talk about different kind of airfoils. For beginners, you want to go with the undercamber or the flat bottom.
Flat bottom, undercamber are both good. You'll get the other ones eventually, don't worry.
And we talked about the importance of airflow. You don't want to get into a stall.
Stalls are bad. Wow, that was pretty good.
That was pretty cool.
Yep. How do you recover from a stall? Relax on the controls, neutralize it, let the plane naturally get more airflow over the wings, and you're good to go. So we got different control surfaces.
We did. We talked about the rudder.
Yep, right here.
We talked about the elevator.
Right here.
We talked about ailerons.
Yep.
And we talked about elevons.
Elevons are always the exception. Those wings are really rule breakers, aren't they?
They are.
They're rebels.
And then we talked about how to control using your transmitter.
Yes. Yeah, the right stick has your ailerons and your elevator, unless it's a 3-channel, and then your rudder's going to move over to that right stick, and the rudder stick on the left side, not going to be there, but your throttle will be.
So that's a basic recap for you, and we want to thank Horizon Hobby for sponsoring this beginner series. And if you guys happen to miss our earlier episodes, make sure you go back and check them out, because it's all really helpful stuff.
We're constantly building off of each other's, and tune in next week for the next episode.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.